Good afternoon. I'm Edward Montgomery. I'm the Dean of the McCourt School of Public Policy. I want to welcome you to the Institute of Politics and Public Services Town Hall with Speaker Paul Ryan. The speaker will be joining us in just a couple of minutes, but before he gets here, I thought I would take a moment to reflect on the incredible inaugural year of the McCourt School's Institute of Politics and Public Service, or GU Politics, as we call it here for short. Founded and launched just last fall as part of the McCourt School, GU Politics is dedicated to reconnecting young people with the idea that politics is a noble vehicle for public service. GU Politics is an integral part of the vision for our school, deepening Georgetown's commitment to civic engagement and civil dialogue. Its programming takes advantage of Georgetown's location in our nation's capital by bringing some of the smartest and most recognizable political figures and public servants in the country to engage with Hoyas, not just to share their experiences, but to hear from you about your ideas to make our political system work better. Their programming is the perfect complement to the analytical training that the McCourt School gives its students. GU Politics helps us convey to students that the fix to our most intractable policy problems requires more than solutions that work good on paper. It requires engagement with the political process, with all of its warts, blemishes, and challenges. It's hard to believe that it's only been a short 8 months since we threw open the doors, but since that time, we've had over 60 events, including former Vermont Senator and Democratic presidential candidate. I'm foreshadowing a little bit here. Sorry. Bernie Sanders. Was not intended. Former presidential candidates Carly Fiorina, Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, Martin O'Malley, as well as their very popular mock caucuses in Iowa and debate watch parties. GU Politics has hosted 2 classes of stellar fellows, including former presidents, a governor, a mayor of a major city, leading journalists and top political operatives on both sides of the aisle. These fellows come to campus every week. They host discussion groups on the latest political topics. They hold office hours for Hoyas who want to pick their brains, to think about their careers, or work with students to help solve political challenges, such as increasing participation amongst Latino youth and coming up with new ways to improve the primary system and its calendar. I think I speak for many here when I say it's hard to even now imagine the campus without GU Politics. I'm proud it's part of the McCourt School, and even more proud of the fact that its activities extend to all Hoyas and in all schools and programs, creating a political community across the campus. Promoting a life of service to others has always been central to what we are at Georgetown. I'm grateful to Mo and Sophie and Hannah and the students and staff who have given a life to the vision behind GU Politics and its role in furthering that goal. Today, we are honored to welcome Speaker Paul Ryan to Gaston to hear his vision on building a confident America. He will join in a town hall with Georgetown students moderated by GU Politics Executive Director Mo Elleithee, former Director of Communications at the Democratic National Committee and a 20-year veteran of national politics. Mo's co-moderator will be GU Politics Advisory Board member, CNN contributor, and New York Daily News columnist S.E. Cupp. S.E. is a leading voice for young, bright, conservative America, and we are grateful for her joining us here today. Events like this exemplify the unofficial GU Politics motto, public service is a good thing, politics can be too. I hope you enjoy today's town hall and look forward to seeing you at GU Politics events and around the McCourt School in the fall ahead. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage John J. DeGioia, President of Georgetown University.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to welcome you here to Gaston Hall. Especially appropriate that we should convene here in Gaston Hall, a place where throughout our history we have convened conversations of importance to our community, to our nation, to our world. I wish to thank all of you for joining us and to offer my gratitude to our distinguished participants today, Mo Elleithee, founding executive director of the Institute of Politics and Public Service, S.E. Cupp, New York Daily News columnist and CNN contributor who serves on our Institute of Politics and Public Service Advisory Board. And we're honored by the presence of the 54th Speaker of the House of Representatives, and a representative from Wisconsin, the Honorable Paul Ryan, who joins us to offer his insights, perspectives, and to engage in dialogue. Addressing a group of White House interns last month, Speaker Ryan spoke of the state of American politics, not as what they are today, but as what they can be. A belief in the possibilities of public service, of work for and towards a more equitable and just society, provides for us the context in which we gather today. And it is this belief in the possibilities of public service that animates the work of our McCourt School and its efforts over the course of this past year to provide a forum for exchange and discussion in service of the common good. So I wish to thank all of you for being here this afternoon, and I now wish to invite Kayla Arletto, a member of the Student Advisory Board and co-director of our Policy Innovation Lab, to introduce Speaker Ryan. Kayla.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Kayla Arletto, and I'm a second-year graduate student here at the McCourt School of Public Policy. I'm also a member of the Student Advisory Board for the Georgetown Institute of Politics and Public Service. This has been an exciting year for GU Politics, and I'm so thankful to have had the opportunity to be a part of this great institute in its inaugural year. The best part about GU Politics is the way it connects students from across the entire Georgetown campus, graduate or undergraduate, and regardless of college or program, to engage in thoughtful and open-minded dialogue about politics. These conversations have happened throughout the entire school year, giving myself and countless other students the opportunity to learn from and to engage with some of the most passionate and dedicated public servants right here on the Hilltop. And this leads me to why I'm here today, which is to introduce our honored guest, Speaker Paul Ryan. Born in Janesville, Wisconsin, Paul Ryan is a fifth-generation Wisconsinite. He attended Miami University in Ohio, where he earned a bachelor's degree in economics and political science. In 1998, Speaker Ryan won his first House election at the age of 28, becoming the youngest member of his freshman class. He became chairman of the House Budget Committee in 2011, where he developed his budget proposal, The Path to Prosperity. In 2012, he was the vice presidential nominee for the Republican presidential ticket. And in 2015, Speaker Ryan became chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, where he worked to renew trade promotion authority and reform Medicare. He was elected Speaker of the United States of House of Representatives this past October. And just last week, he made his late-night television debut on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Please join our conversation today on social media using the hashtag #RyanAtGU. And now, without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan.
Thank you. Hey guys, how you doing? Hey everybody. Hey, good to see you again. Thank you very much. Kayla, thanks. John, thanks for the introduction. I really appreciate it. I want to thank S.E. Cupp, my friend, for inviting me here, and all of you for indulging me. I look forward to answering each and every one of your questions as long as we get it done in the scheduled time. First, I want to make my case. Why support Republicans? Golf clap, right? Okay, that was politeness. Thank you. I'm going to go out on a limb And I'm going to assume that the thought has not been occurring to most of you recently. So here's how I would sum it up. The America that you want is the America that we want. Open, diverse, dynamic. It's what I call a confident America, where the condition of your birth does not determine the outcome of your life, where we tackle our problems together so that all of us can thrive. How do we get there? How do we do that? That is why I'm here today. Building that America, that's why I got into politics. Look, I never thought that I would ever run for office, especially when I was your age. Back then, I wanted to be an economist, which goes to show just how much fun I was back in those days. But my last year of college, I got offered a job on Capitol Hill. It's where I interned the summer before for my home state senator, a guy named Bob Caston. And seniors, you are learning this right now. The first time anybody offers you a job for anything, it's a huge relief and somewhat of a shock. I almost didn't take it. What I really wanted to do at the time, I wanted to go to Colorado for a couple of years. I wanted to wait tables and do mountain climbing in the summer, and I wanted to join the ski patrol in the winter. That's what I thought I was going to do for at least a good couple of years. Then, when I mentioned this idea to my mom, she wasn't exactly enthusiastic. She said to me, if you do that, you'll become a ski bum. 1 year turns into 3, 3 years turns into 6, and before you know it, you'll be 30 years old. To which, to a 22-year-old me, sounded really, really ancient. So I took the job, and I quickly realized that public service was where I could have the biggest impact. You can make a real difference in people's lives. And you can make a real difference in people's lives at a young age. So when the congressman who represented my district back home, he decided to leave the House, I ran for his seat. I was just 28 years old then. And to everybody's surprise, myself included, I won that election. And I went into politics because I wanted to solve problems. I entered Congress in 1999. I don't even want to know how old you were at that time back then, but it was a different time. Cell phones, they were a lot bigger, and so was my hair. And the hot button issue at that time, I remember it like it was yesterday, the hot button issue at that time was Social Security. I got involved in this issue because I wanted to save it. For me, it was very, very personal. My dad died when I was 16 years old. So my family relied on those Social Security survivor benefits. I used them to help me go to college. My mom used them to help her start her new career. She had just turned 50, her husband died unexpectedly, and now she had to completely start over. Every weekday, she would get on a bus and ride to Madison, Wisconsin, 40 miles to go to the UW to school, because she had to get a new skill set, a new degree. She was able to learn these new skills and start a small business. So I knew what Social Security had done for my family. And I wanted all Americans of all generations to have that same level of security. This speaks to a larger point I want to make. When I was growing up, I lived in a country where if you got up every day and gave it your all, it would pay off. You could find a rewarding job. You could start your own business. You could buy a home and raise a family in a nice neighborhood. And no matter where you come from, no office or distinction was too high for your reach. Anything was possible. And if you were willing to make the effort. And if life threw you a curveball, you would get the support you needed. That, I think, is the kind of country that we all want to live in. And you know better than most that it just doesn't happen automatically. Look, you grew up during the Great Recession. You saw for yourselves how opportunity can disappear in a moment. And when I talk about college graduates these days, it is clear they're still living with the consequences of this crash. They studied hard, but they can't find a job that matches their new skills. They're working hard, but they're not getting that promotion that they had hoped for. They wanted to buy a house. They can't afford it. They want to begin to save for retirement, and they can't sacrifice the money. So the question is, how do we open up opportunity for everybody in this country? And what specifically is the government's role in doing this? Well, as you might have heard, this is a matter of dispute. And it has been for a long time. I just want to say one thing. My Democratic friends are good people who love this country. Let me just say it again. The Democrats that we battle with day to day and argue with time and again in Congress and everywhere else, they're good people who love our country. We work together every day to find common ground and make progress where we can. But there are real disagreements between us. And we should be clear about those disagreements, because then when the time comes, the people can decide which direction they want to go. This is what we feel we owe people. And I believe many of our current policies are shutting young people out of our economy by taking decisions away from people, away from the individual. So this is how we see the difference. We do not believe we should be governed by our betters, that elites in Washington should make all those big decisions, that they should be picking winners and losers. That's a recipe for a closed economy, for cronyism. We want an open economy where there's equal opportunity for all people, where more people can participate and rise by their own talents, where the individual can put their ideas and their aspirations to the test. This contrast, I know it is hard to visualize. So here's an example. Say you've got an idea for a new business and you want to create a startup. Well, you need to raise money to do that. And if you want to raise money on the internet, as so many people do these days, you typically have two options. Ask for donations or go get a loan. There's a third option. Offer stock. That sounds pretty intimidating, but really, it's not. It's basically just crowdsourcing for investors. And it works for a lot of people because when you're not making money, you don't owe your investors anything like debt. But a few years ago, the Securities and Exchange Commission got involved. It thought this kind of crowdfunding was too risky for small dollars investors. That is, people like yourselves just getting started. And they said you couldn't do it. Instead of laying down rules to make it safe, so people could actually participate, the SEC just ruled it out of bounds. That's the difference between giving information to people and making decisions for them. That's why we passed a law to make the SEC change course. We said, write the rules so more people can participate. Don't outlaw this. This works. It's good. And guess what happened? More people got to invest. More people reached their dreams. More startups got to expand. Now, we still are working on the kinks in this law. We've actually got a bill on the floor this week to consider that we're going to be fixing this. But I would argue that this shows the kind of mindset that we need to have in government. The point of having rules is to open up society, not to shut it off. It is to give people the information they need so that they can take action. It is that information that turns you into an investor or an inventor or an entrepreneur. And that's how we solve problems in this country, from the bottom up, not from the top down. Now, we need to take this mindset, and we need to apply this mindset to the challenges of the day. Here's just a few more examples. I am all for helping people pay for health insurance. But the healthcare law literally outlawed millions of plans that were working that people liked. And now millions are struggling to pay for their premiums. And if you're young and healthy, you don't need a plan with all the bells and the whistles. You just need basic coverage. So why not open up our healthcare system so people can pick a plan that works for them? Student debt is now bigger than credit card debt. And so many of my friends on the other side say we should make community college free. What if you don't want to go to community college? Why don't we break up the college cartel and say, let's have students, give them more options? Why don't we give our students a choice? We've been fighting the war on poverty for over 50 years now. We spend billions of dollars each year on 92 different federal poverty-fighting programs. Yet, poverty is not all that much lower than when we started this war 51 years ago. And if you look in our local communities, there are actually thousands of people fighting poverty on the front lines every day and winning this fight. So instead of trying to replace them, instead of trying to overregulate them, instead of trying to control and direct or displace them, government ought to support them. There are over 2 million people in our prisons. Many of them are not hardened criminals. They're not violent people. A lot of them are just people who made a mistake. I think we need to let more people earn a second chance in life. Instead of locking people up, why don't we unlock their potential? You know the good news? Good news is we don't just have to ask these questions. We can do these things. And that is why, right now, Republicans are working on a policy agenda to address some of these challenges I have just discussed here today and others. If we do not like the direction our country is going, and we do not, then we feel that we have an obligation. Then we owe the country an alternative. We owe it to you, our future. I know you've heard people like me say that yours may be the first generation to be less off than ever before, that we'd sever this legacy of leaving the next generation better off. That does not have to happen. And it will not have to happen if we seize this moment. Maybe this will help sum things up. At the Democratic National Convention in 2012, they showed this video that said, "Government is the only thing that we all belong to." I think they got it exactly backward. Government is the only thing that belongs to all of us. It is not supposed to manage people, but to serve them. And I think this mindset is in total sync with the way that you live your lives. It is almost cliche to say that your generation is the most technologically savvy we have ever seen. I mean, look, if I can log on to Netflix or Vudu or Hulu, that is a huge win for me. I usually ask my 11-year-old how to do it. But you know better than anyone that technology is not a toy or a distraction. It is what allows you to focus on the essentials in life, on your faith, on your family, on your work, on your hobbies. I would argue that government is supposed to do the same thing. These days, with technology, you are so used to customizing your everyday life. It's at your fingertips. So why on earth would you want to support a governing philosophy that seeks to take away your right and your ability to customize, to individualize, to decide critical aspects of your life, like your health care or your education? You can't say government is of the people when it is imposing its decisions on the people. Government does not impose community. The people create it. And government's role is to protect it. Only we, the people, can build a confident America. So today, I am asking for your help. We need your ideas. We need you to create the next Uber or Lyft or Twitter or Snapchat, or to raise the next generation, or to run for office, or to get involved in our community, or to do all these things. Because that's who we are. A country that sees the potential in every human being. You learned this at Georgetown, I know it. And does everything we can to bring that potential to life. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right, DNC man, are you ready? Are you ready for this? All right, Mr. Speaker, welcome back to Georgetown.
Thank you.
And thank you for
The lights
doing
are hot, so you mind if I just...
no, get comfortable. Because we want to have a real conversation here today. As you know, before I came here, I was at the Democratic National Committee.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I put a lot of press releases out about you and went on TV, oftentimes up against SC, talking about you. But never really thought about what I'd do if I was sitting here face to face with you and actually wanted to have a conversation. That's what we're about. That conversation is so important for no one more so than young people. And these students are ready for you. I've seen a few of their questions, not all. And they're ready to have a real dialogue. Here's how it's going to work. We want to get through as many as we can. We've got the students up here on the riser who have submitted questions. We've had some students who submitted questions via social media. And then we've got the students in the audience, many of whom may want to ask questions. We're going to rotate through. For those of you in the audience, we will have a mic stand in center aisle. Begin lining up now, I recommend, if you have questions. And while they do that...
And don't filibuster the answers, right?
While we do that, we're going to toss it over to S.E. She's the one that got you to come to campus, so let her ask the first question.
Well, I want to get one thing out of the way. It's the question on everyone's mind. I'd like a yes or no answer. You can solve this today, finally.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
Are the Packers going to go all the way this year?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, absolutely. Good.
So stop asking him.
We need a tight end, and then we're good.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
On to business. I've been covering the youth vote for a decade. It wasn't that long ago I was a young voter. If you talk to young voters like I do, you'll hear a similar complaint that over the years, Democrats have pandered to young voters and Republicans have ignored them altogether. So why should the millennials in this room, the largest generation in history, and millennials all over the country trust that today's politicians, including you, are going to do anything different?
Well, first of all, you should want to be competed for and not taken for granted. That's point number one, I would say. Second of all, you need to find out who's a conviction person and who's not. Who's telling you what they actually believe. You know, you want someone who actually means what they say and says what they mean. And by the way, you'll get a pretty good BS monitor as you watch this more and more. Who really means what they say? And the key is, does the person who is running for office, saying what they're going to do, if they get elected, do they actually do it? I mean, that's really what matters. Is it just fluff? Is it just bluster? Or are they actually doing what they said they would do? Are they pushing the cause? Are they fighting for the idea? And the last point I would say is, get beyond emotion. Don't base your decisions on emotions or make your arguments based on emotions. Go deeper than that. Go to reason. I mean, read Aquinas here at Georgetown, I'm sure you are. Base your decisions based on reason, based on logic, based on principle, and then find out if a person actually has that. If they're taking their decisions and filtering it through a set of principles that then offers solutions so that they're going in a consistent direction, so that they're not pandering or being simply a populist or simply just running in circles. That to me is what I found is helpful when you're trying to judge whether or not a person has earned your support.
All right, let's go to the students. Our first question we're going to take from up here on the riser. To all students that get a chance to ask a question, when you begin, please begin by telling us your name, your school, your class year, your major, where you're from. Can you keep all that straight? You're Georgetown students, you can do it. And our first one will come from here on the riser with a question from Megan. So, Megan?
Hi, my name is Megan Maraglia. I'm a second-year graduate student in the McCourt School. I'm originally from South Jersey, outside of Philadelphia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Secretary Clinton and Senator Sanders have spent a lot of time on the campaign trail discussing student debt and college affordability, which is undoubtedly a pressing issue for many here today, and you mentioned in your speech. Both of them seem to have specific proposals on how to prevent this problem from perpetuating, but I'm not sure we've heard the same level of detail and commitment from Republicans. So what are Republicans going to do to seriously and in a timely manner address this problem?
First, I'd be weary of empty promises that aren't paid for, but just saying. Sorry, DNC man.
I haven't made any promises to you today.
So, honestly, look at inflation in tuition. No offense, Georgetown, but look at inflation. It's just like this in healthcare too. What we have is a third-party payment system where we're insulating the consumer from the price. And by the way, we're just racking you up with debt. So how do we get at this problem? Because what we have found, Richard Vedder's done some really good studies of this at Ohio University. What we have found is when the government pumps money into the system, then the college ends up just cranking up the price and sticking you with the debt. So how do you deal with this? Well, number one, I think we need better metrics. We need more transparency. Am I getting value for my education? Do people who get this education at this institution actually get the jobs and the careers in their field? What's the success rate of that? What do I earn after getting this? And let's have a real competition based on choice, on quality, on price, and outcome. We need to do this in healthcare too. And those kinds of metrics we do not now have in higher education. The second point I'd make is we should not have nationalized the student loan industry in 2010. It has been nationalized, and now we're on the hook as taxpayers for about $1 trillion of debt. Default rates are through the roof. Look, after college, I worked 3 jobs. I waited tables, I worked as a Senate staffer, as I described here earlier, and I was a fitness trainer on the weekends so I could make a little extra cash and get a free membership. I got my loans at Great Lakes Higher Education, this great nonprofit in Madison, Wisconsin. And every time I got a new job or got a different payment, they would adjust it for me to work with me so I could meet my loans. They were able to work it out with me. We don't do that now. We have just a government agency, the Department of Education, giving you the one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter, loan, and the default rates are through the roof, and taxpayers are on the hook. So get more competition in every sense of the word. More competition in student lending, more competition among colleges, so we know their books. Where are you wasting money? Why are you spending money on these things? Are we getting value for our tuition credit dollar? And then let's break up the cartel so that you can take credits from other places and apply it. Can I bring some credits from high school with ACTs? Can I bring some, with different college courses? Can I bring a 2-year degree in? Are there online alternatives? Can I put together a competitive form of getting a college tuition that isn't as costly? Look, I love this college. It's a great school. You've had some awesome basketball teams, and it's just top world class, but not everybody can afford a place like this. So how do we get this kind of an education within reach of people who have no chance of affording it? That means more competition, not less.
Let's take an audience question. And I'll remind you, please state your name, class, your school, major, hometown, and also please questions, not comments. Thank you.
My name is Steven. I am a second-year McCourt student from unincorporated Lake County, Florida. Recently, Speaker Ryan, your colleague Candace Miller from Michigan had all state flags removed from the Capitol tunnel. This is a result of the fact that many of the southern states have Confederate symbols in them. Could you please comment on this renewed Northern Republican reconstruction and the aspects of the erasure of Southern symbols, as well as the ostracization of Southern voters by the GOP?
I never looked at it that way, by the way. Northern, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin, so guilty as a Northerner. For the record, I supported her decision, and we discussed it, and I thought it was the right thing to do. Mississippi is still going to be represented because we're putting the commemorative coins up for each of the states. Here's the issue, and I think Nikki Haley did the right thing, and we may not agree, but this symbol does insult. This symbol, I think, does more to divide this country than to unify this country. As a states' rights person, it is up to the states to decide these things. But I got to tell you, if in the Capitol we're going to have symbols, we're going to have symbols that unify people, that don't divide people. And that's just the way we think.
All right. Our next question comes from Twitter. Georgetown student, is it up there? Rachel Hirsch, who is a first-year student from Chicago, Illinois, in public policy at the McCourt School. There she is. Say hi. Rachel asks, Mr. Speaker, what prompted you to reconsider your previous statements on poor people as takers?
I was just wrong. I mean, I didn't mean offense. It's, obviously I'm a conservative. I have a libertarian streak in me. I believe in limited government and upward mobility and opportunity. But there are people, look, my own family went through this. There are people who get knocked down in life and they need help. And that's what communities are for. And government has a really important role to play in that. And to lump an entire category of people suffering into one broad base brush category, kind of like the last question we had, it's wrong, I think. And so if you do something that is wrong, that misimplies, that is hurtful, instead of just trying to spin yourself out of it, just own up to it and just fess up and fix it. And that's just the way I saw it, and that's why I did it. Just that simple.
We have another question from the stage. Connor?
Mr. Speaker, thank you again for being with us today. My name is Connor Maitner. I'm a junior in the college, majoring in government, originally from Barrington, Illinois, so not far from Janesville.
No, I know Barrington, yeah.
So my question to you is that I've been very dismayed by this year's election thus far. I'll never support Donald Trump.
Why is that?
Yeah, in case you haven't heard. But I'll never support Donald Trump, and Ted Cruz does very little to appeal to me as a young voter. And so I ask you, what advice or reasons for optimism could you offer to young Republicans such as myself who find it very difficult to support either of the two leading candidates for our party's nomination?
Well, unfortunately, this is not the first time I've had this question. Let me... all right, no. So as you know, I'm chair of the convention. I learned about this because the Speaker of the House is the chair of the convention. By the way, I didn't learn about this until after I had become Speaker of the House. So I'm very neutral on this, so I'm not trying to push you one way or the other. I would look at the ideas. Look at the platform that's being advanced. Look at the agenda project that we are advancing, which, by the way, we decided in the House before the presidential election got started, when we had 17 candidates. And so look at what it is we're presenting to the country later this early summer, before Cleveland, and that we're going to offer the country. 5 things in our agenda. And look, where there's common ground and we can get things done, do it. That's why we did education reform, transportation reform, rewrite our customs laws. We're passing a bill this week that says the government can't just take your emails without a warrant. So we're fixing things where we can find common ground, but there are a lot of things we don't. Look at the 5 things we're talking about, and look at the policies, not the person necessarily, because it's the policies that matter so much. How do you grow the economy? Reform the tax code, open up energy, regulatory reform. What does patient-centered healthcare look like? We don't think the Affordable Care Act is working. Newsflash, Republicans are against Obamacare. But we owe it to people to show what we would replace it with. We have to show what we would do differently. And by the way, if we do not fix our entitlement programs from the current path to bankruptcy that we are on, you will receive an inferior future. You will receive a mountain of debt that no American generation has ever received. It will guarantee your living standards are lower. And so our generation better fix this problem now. We helped create it so that your generation can be free and prosperous, and you better support, this is my opinion, it's in your interest, support us getting on top of our budget problems. So grow the economy, patient-centered healthcare and entitlement reform. We think we have better ideas for fighting poverty. We think we should compete in the battle of ideas for how to fix poverty and move people from welfare to work. We have welfare programs that are work replacement programs. We need them to be work encouragement programs. We think our national security is a mess. We have to have a doctrine and a philosophy and a military that is capable of fixing that. And the last point I would say, which I really believe transcends party labels, is we need to restore the Constitution and the Article 1 of the Constitution. What that means is the laws that we live under should be written by we through our elected representatives. Right now, we don't really have that. This isn't just Barack Obama's fault, although he's taken it to a whole new level. Prior administrations, Republican administrations have been doing this. We've got this 4th branch of government, unelected bureaucrats, writing our rules, writing our regulations that govern our society. It determines how our businesses run, how our schools work. It governs almost everything we do. And guess what? I, as your member of Congress, if you live in the 1st District of Wisconsin, have no say-so over this. So our laws aren't being written by us through our elected representatives. So one of the forming foundational principles of this country is that we are a self-governing people. We believe in self-determination. We believe in government by consent of the governed. We are losing that. And so we have a lot of ideas for restoring that, so we have a government that is accountable to us, the people. These 5 things, economic growth, entitlement and healthcare reform, upward mobility, welfare reform, national security, and restoring self-government, are ideas that I think are animating, that are necessary for saving this country. And by the way, we think it gets us on a better track. So in front of you is not just a vote for a person, a political, personality. In front of you, if we do our jobs the right way, will be a choice of 2 paths that you will have to take. Do you want to stay in the status quo? Do you want to go down the same path we are on? Or do you want to go in this different direction? We owe you that choice. And so that's the choice you'll have, far more than a personality. Republicans lose personality contests anyway. We always do. And just have learned that lesson the hard way. But we win ideas contests. And this is what we want to have as an ideas contest. So I would just ask you to raise your gaze and look at the horizon that we're trying to paint and look at the agenda that we're offering you so that the people of this country get to choose which path we take.
Let's go to the next question from the audience.
Hello, Speaker Ryan. My name is Michael. I'm a junior in the college studying government and economics, much like you did, and I'm from suburban Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. So actually building off your answer to Connor's question about choosing between 2 paths and seeing what consent of the government looks like, that happens a lot at the state level. In my state of Arizona, where Republicans control the governorship and both houses, and in many other states across the country, probably most infamously Kansas, we've seen some of your ideas put to the test, where government is getting off people's backs by cutting taxes and slashing regulations. Yet teachers are leaving Arizona in droves. Kansas Republicans aren't seeing the economy grow, and in fact, they're almost in open revolt against their governor. How can you ask me to support some of these ideas nationally when I look back at my state or many other states where you have the political will and opportunity to enact this path, and it doesn't seem to be working?
Well, I know Sam Brombeck well, and I know that they've had a pretty impressive business development growth there, but I won't go into Kansas, Arizona. Let me tell you the answer to your question from our perspective at the federal level. Let's just take taxes, for example. We are taxing ourselves, our businesses, at a much, much higher rate than our foreign competitors are taxing theirs. Overseas, which where I come from means Lake Superior, the Canadians are taxing all their businesses at 15%. Companies, we call them corporations, are taxed at 35%. Successful small businesses are taxed as high as 44.6%. We are killing ourselves. This is why all these businesses are leaving and going overseas, or foreign companies are buying US businesses. So yes, we have to get our tax rates down. It's so important for American competitiveness, for jobs, for capital to stay here, for businesses to stay headquartered here, that we get our tax rates down. So I think we can make a very successful case for this philosophy. But the point I would say is, because we believe in living in a government doesn't mean we live in no government. We want government to be effective at what it does. We don't want government to stretch itself beyond where it should be. And that means we in our communities, in our schools, in our businesses, we make more decisions for ourselves and we solve problems ourselves organically from the bottom up in an open economy, instead of government making these command and control decisions. We have learned that command and control economies, as well-intended as they may be, leads to cronyism, lethargy, bureaucracy. It slows things down. It stops upward mobility. And so that is why I would argue for a very limited government that helps our American workers, our businesses, be more competitive. And so yes, I think we need to lower tax rates. And by the way, with the kind of deficits we have and the debt we have, you better hope we get our spending under control, because you're gonna get hit with a debt that's just crazy. Look, I'll say one more point. We have run the federal government for the last 60 years. I'm rounding here for fact checkers. We have run the federal government for 60 years at about 20% of GDP. 20 cents out of every dollar made in America goes to the federal government. By the time my kids are my age, we'll take 40 cents out of every dollar made in America just to run this government at that time. I asked the Congressional Budget Office a number of years ago, what will the tax rates, the income tax rates, have to be on that next generation when my kids are having their grandkids, my grandkids, when they're having their children? They said the lowest tax rate for lower income people, which is right now 15%. It's got to go to 25%. Middle income tax rates for middle income taxpayers goes to 66%. And the top tax rate, the one that all those successful small businesses pay, would have to go to 88%. And then in the next sentence, they said, this could have some negative effects on the economy at that time. The point I'm trying to make is, it's not as if we're standing still here. We are heading in the wrong direction. We're on the wrong path, making American businesses and our economy less and less and less competitive, which means fewer jobs, slower economic growth, less take-home pay, less economic security. And so we do have to re-limit our government so we can focus it on doing what it's supposed to do and do it well. And yes, these theories do work. When we lower tax rates, especially in this global competition, it helps, it works, it is successful. So maybe it's a difference between federal and state government, but we are in a global economy, whether we like it or not, and we better be globally competitive. And I would argue on a lot of fronts that we're not. Thanks for the question.
Let's take another question from the stage. Will?
Where's Will? Okay.
Hi, I'm
Hey.
Will Simons. I'm a senior in the college, a government major, and originally from Briarcliff, New York.
From where in New York?
Briarcliff, Westchester County. So my question is, many young people worry about climate change and its potential negative impacts. Yet many Americans, especially those in the fossil fuel industry who work in the fossil fuel industry, also worry about the negative economic consequences from climate change related policies. So how do politicians decide whether to prioritize the worries of a middle-aged worker at a coal plant who may lose his job, for instance, or the worries of individuals like us and our children who will have to deal with the negative consequences of climate change much more severely?
I think you set the question up well. So do we have to be forced into a trade-off between the two? I would like to think we don't have to do that. We don't have to trade one for the other. We don't have to trade our prosperity today or the economic anxiety of a middle-aged worker for a better environment. Why don't we try and work with both of these together? So to that point, take coal, for example. The old way of burning coal was pretty darn dirty. So we have clean coal technologies. They're working on sequestration. Let's make sure it's cleaner. Oh, and by the way, while we do that, why don't we invest in basic scientific research to innovate our way into a cleaner economy? This is why I don't support the various ideas like cap and trade or carbon taxes. Because what they basically do is they harm our economy, and I come from manufacturing part of the country. They make our manufacturers so much less competitive, and those jobs go to other countries, say China or India, who aren't doing anything to fix this, generally speaking, and they'll just pump more dirty air in the atmosphere and take our jobs. I hate to say it so starkly. So let's not do that. Let's not unilaterally disarm our economy. Why don't we focus on getting faster economic growth, cleaning up our act? Natural gas is an incredible bridge fuel. We've got a lot of it now that we have this new technology. And let's invest in research. This is one of the things people don't realize about us is in the last budget agreement we did, our big interest was saving our military from another round of sequestration. But the domestic spending equation of this is we put more money into research, more money into basic health research to find a cure for cancer, more money into scientific research to find out, research on fusion. How do we get nuclear energy so that we have renewable and no waste? These are the kinds of things that we should do instead of forcing bad ideas in an economy that dislocates that coal miner, in eastern Ohio, who is trying to feed his family and have a future for himself. We don't have to trade these things off with one another, and that is why I just am not supportive of the ideas that end up doing that, rather than taking the innovation approach.
Okay. Let's go take another question off of Twitter. Matt Freed, who is a senior in the college from Ashland, Kentucky, majoring in government, studying also economics and biology, which means he's already smarter than I ever will be.
You work for the DNC, right? You set me up. I'm sorry, man, dude. It was a softball.
I came back to Georgetown. Let's just be clear about that. The 2013 GOP autopsy demanded outreach to Latino voters. Why do you promise not to work on immigration before November?
Because I think the president poisoned the well. I know that sounds like a finger-pointing exercise. This is a broken system that has to be fixed. This is a nation of immigrants. Look, my name's Ryan. I'm here because the potatoes stopped growing in Ireland. And, and our family made it, and each generation, had even more opportunities. That's the beautiful story of this country. It's a beautiful story that needs to continue in this country. We had an opportunity in the last session that we lost to get immigration reform. We asked the president, don't do this divisive, unconstitutional executive order. We call it executive amnesty. Work with us. What did the president do? Before we even started the new session with the new Congress, he did this executive order, which threw us into a court battle, which we just had oral arguments the other day. So as soon as he made that move, he threw us into a court battle over constitutionality of the executive branch going it alone and writing laws without Congress writing those laws. And we knew that the well would be poisoned. And yes, perhaps a political advantage is being had here, but there was an opportunity that has been lost now because of this. So this will have to wait for the next president, because when you have a tense relationship like this, where a president is going around Congress and trying to unilaterally write laws, violating the Constitution, it doesn't make for the kind of working relationship you need. The last point I'd say about this is people, those of us who are in Congress spend a lot of time with our constituents. I was doing a telephone town hall in Kenosha County last night, and I just can't understate how concerned people are about national security, how concerned people are about the fact that the borders are not being secured. This is about heroin and opioid. This is about ISIS. It's not about a demographic. It's not about Latinos. It's not at all about that. One of my longest serving employees is a woman from Oaxaca. She's a beautiful person. She helps me with my Latino outreach. I do my bilingual town hall meetings with her. It is not about that. It is about the rule of law. It is about this country being, knowing who is coming and who is going, and then getting these laws right so that they work. And the last point I would make, and I've been working on immigration reform a long time, since before I was elected to Congress, we need to have reforms that are lasting. We tried fixing this in 1996, that didn't work. We started with 1986, that didn't work. Then we went to 1996, and basically since 2006, George Bush made a really good try. I supported that effort. We haven't been able to fix it. And we have to come together and figure this out, but I don't think that this year is going to happen because of the executive amnesty and the run around Congress and how that poisoned the well and sent us into a court battle. We had our lawyer in court just a week ago arguing these cases, not based on really immigration, but based on the rule of law. So at the end of the day, we need to fix this problem. It's broken, and don't forget the rule of law and security is paramount to have that first as a confidence-building measure to make sure that people really believe that the laws will be enforced so that when we do immigration reform, it's lasting. It doesn't last 5 or 10 years like the last 3 times we tried it. It actually works for a long time to come.
Let me exercise moderator's prerogative here and just ask one follow-up, because we're talking about millennials today, talking about young people, and there are a lot of young people out there who are worried about a family member being deported. And they may have just heard your answer and heard a lot of process about executive orders and the president and runs. Speak to that person.
Yeah, so like dreamers.
Right? Speak to that person and allay their concern.
So the way to solve a problem is not treat the symptoms. The way to solve a problem is to solve the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem is a fundamentally broken system. It's a system that we don't know who is coming and going in this country. And in a day of heroin and ISIS and drug cartels, it's a real threat to our national security. We're in the middle of writing all this opioid legislation because of this problem coming from our borders. And if we can fix the root cause of fixing our immigration laws, and I'm a person who believes that for the undocumented, we have to come up with a solution that doesn't involve mass deportations, that involves giving people the ability to get right with law, to come and earn a legal status, while we fix the rest of legal immigration, which, by the way, I think is broken. Takes forever to get a visa. There are industries that can't find people. And also, let's make sure that people who can't find jobs, who are Americans, get those jobs first. So we got to make sure we get these details right. It's not quick and easy. But if we treat the root cause of the problem, then these symptoms, like dreamers, and the fear of your family being broken up will be solved if we get at the root cause of these things.
Let's take another question from the audience. If you can remember to state your name and your class and where you're from and your major. Thank you.
You keep
Thank
saying
you for being here, Mr. Speaker. My name is Andrew Schneider. I'm a freshman in the college studying government and Chinese, and I'm from San Francisco. So a lot of Republicans, yourself included, and you mentioned this earlier, have talked about the fact that you want to repeal Obamacare. And that not only do you want to do that, but obviously you have to have something that comes after that. You can't just get rid of something and have nothing to replace it with. And that this plan has to be very specific, and that you have to give a reasonable alternative to the current system. Now, one of the things that Obamacare has given, especially to my family and other people, has been that you can no longer discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. Right. If you get rid of Obamacare, will the new Republican policy specifically have a stipulation that continues this, or will people in the Republican alternative have to get rid of their health care because they have a pre-existing condition?
So,
thank you.
You speak fast like me, and I'll try, which is a benefit and a curse. I think we can do a better job of getting at this problem, which is people with pre-existing conditions not being able to buy affordable coverage, or when they get really sick, they go bankrupt. We can and should and must fix that. I think that the solution that is in this law didn't work. The reason I think it didn't work is because it's making other people needlessly pay for health insurance that is far too expensive for them, and we're making people buy insurance products that they don't need or want. And so the smarter way, in my opinion, and we have a task force that's working on this just right now, the smarter way, in my opinion, is that we as a society make a decision at the government level that we will buck up and subsidize those people with pre-existing conditions. So let me just give you an actuarial view of this. For the under 65, I know I sound like a geek when I say stuff like that. For the under 65 population, less than 10% of the people under 65 are in what we call people with pre-existing conditions, who are really kind of uninsurable. Let's fund risk pools at the state level to subsidize their coverage so that they can get affordable coverage, so that if you, say, get breast cancer when you're 45 years old, those subsidies kick in to protect you from bankruptcy, so that you keep good insurance. And you know what it does for the rest of insurance, for the other 90+% of Americans? The pools covering them don't have to go and cover this event of a catastrophically expensive health insurance bill for somebody, and you dramatically lower the price for everybody else. You make health insurance so much more affordable, so much more competitive, and open up competition. Right now, look, under Obamacare, I'm 46, I stay in shape, I don't smoke, I have a couple Miller Lights now and then, but I stay healthy. I work on it. My dad died of a heart attack when he was 55, my grandfather 57, my great-grandfather 59, so I take that stuff seriously. My next-door neighbor could be the same demographic, same age. He could drink, a case of beer each night, 2 steaks, not run, be 100 pounds overweight, and under the law, you can't reward a person for better behavior. You can't have incentives to be healthier. That makes no sense. So we're taking the insurance industry and turning it into a government corporation. It's cronyism. We're basically going down to just a few insurance companies, like public utilities, and we're giving people no choices. We're taking away competition, and it's not working. I met with some actuaries the other day who tell us that that Obamacare is failing 2 years ahead of schedule. What they meant when they say that is that all that's happening now are people who are sicker are buying the insurance, cranking up the price, and people who are young, who are low and middle income, who need insurance can't afford it, and so they're just not going insured. We can fix this. And that, to me, is on your point, open up underwriting, have more insurance companies, have more competition, and just pay for the person with the pre-existing condition to make sure that they get affordable coverage when that moment happens, and make it much more competitive for everybody else. I think it's a smarter way to do it economically, and it gives people more freedom, more choices, and then we have more of a patient-centered healthcare system, not some crony, government-run, top-down, bureaucratic, unaffordable system like we're having today.
I'd really like you to address for this millennial audience the question of why tax reform should matter to this generation. Speaking your love language
It is.
on taxes and the economy.
So, first of all, I used to chair the Ways and Means Committee. It was the dream job that I always wanted to get, and then I had it for like less than a year.
Now I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. And then I became in this job, and so I think about Ways and Means a lot. The reason I took this job and I wanted to get this job is I've always believed that one of the worst manifestations of the federal government, of political influence, and this isn't really kind of a right and left thing, is the tax code. Right now, the tax code is full of different provisions that are put there by, the well-connected, by interest groups. And what that means is, let's say you have a base of income in America that's this big, and you put all these loopholes in the tax code that narrows the tax base to this much. Then you have to have tax rates that much higher to raise the equivalent amount of money for the government. But if we take loopholes out of the code and we can lower rates for everybody, we accomplish a couple of things. We make workers, families, and businesses better off and more competitive, especially in the global economy like I mentioned earlier. But more to the point, it's the point I was trying to make earlier. It's a philosophical point. It's your money. You should make a decision what you want to do with it. Instead of sending your money to Washington and then some interest group and a member of Congress, both sides do this, an interest group and a member of Congress puts some loophole in there, and then they'll let you keep some of your money back if you engage in the behavior that they approve of. That's what we got today. And that means we have a really complicated system with an agency that is not a good agency, in my opinion, messing up people's lives and making our economy much less competitive. So if we can get the cronyism out, pull these provisions out, lower our rates, let you keep more of your own money, and you decide what you want to do with your money because it's your money. Oh, and by the way, it makes our economy more competitive. It helps American businesses stay American. We're losing the biggest publicly traded business in Wisconsin called Johnson Controls because they're buying a company called Tyco, which is headquartered in Ireland, and therefore becoming an Irish company. You know what happens when this happens? The loyalties end up going. The allegiances go. The headquarters go. And there goes the philanthropy. There goes the foundations. There go the great jobs. That's happening across this economy because we have this really uncompetitive tax system. Ireland taxes their businesses at 12.5%. We're between 35 and as high as 44.6%. China's at 25. Canada, as I said, is 15. England is going down to 20. So if we want to be competitive, if we want to have good jobs and a faster growing economy, more control over our lives and decide what we want to do with our money, and more headquarters in America so we can get good jobs at those headquarters, whether you want to be a CEO or a researcher or an accountant or a counsel, whatever that is, or just a manufacturer, we got to get tax reform. It is really a big deal. The last point I'll say is the way we tax our system internationally is killing us. All the other countries say if you make money overseas, you pay that overseas country tax rate, and then you bring your money home, and there you go. We don't do it that way. We say if you take Harley Davidson in Milwaukee, you sell the Harley in France, you pay the French tax when you sell that Harley, but then if you want to bring that money back to Milwaukee to reinvest in our Milwaukee factory, you got to pay the American tax on top of it, the additional American tax. What happens? They don't take the money home. It stays overseas. No other country does that. We've got to fix these things so we can take the $2 trillion of capital that's sitting overseas that could come back home and be redeployed in our economy to give you good jobs that you can leave school for. But because of our tax laws, we're not doing that. And that's why we need to have tax reform.
Let's take another question from the riser, and this next one comes from Joel. Joel, are you?
Mr. Speaker, thanks for coming and welcome back to Georgetown. My name is Joel. I'm a sophomore in the School of Foreign Service majoring in international economics, and I'm from North Canton, Ohio. Just a month ago, you gave a speech to Capitol interns such as myself, and in it, you touched on the growing political divisions in our society. It seems that nowadays, everybody on both sides of the aisle tend to see each other's more as enemies than as people with whom to cooperate. And what I wanted to know was, what do you see back home on the ground in your district in Wisconsin rather than here in DC that you believe is the root cause of these divisions? And more importantly, what can we young people do to fix this problem? Thank you.
Yeah, I worry about this a lot. I know I look really young. Just kidding, but it's my 18th year in Congress. And I have never seen the well poisoned as much as it is these days. I've not seen the kind of vitriol and the kind of bitterness in our just politics like we have today. And I got to say, I think it's both sides. It's not, I'd love to say it's just Democrats, but it's not. It's both. I think one of the sources of this problem, one of them, is what is referred to as identity politics. It has become viewed as a successful political strategy to prey on and play on a person's identity and speak to them in a way that divides them from another person, so that you can get enough of your groups that you're speaking to be 50+1 and win an election. Now, unfortunately, both sides are playing this game, and all it ends up doing is dividing us as a country. So we are speaking to each other in ways that divide us. I see this in Wisconsin. I see this wherever you go. And that is having neighbors lose friendships. I mean, we're having the kinds of political discussions in America today where people are losing friendships over these things, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so how do you fix that? I think leaders fix this. And we haven't had that kind of leadership lately. And leaders need to say, here's my principle, here's my solution, and let's try and do it in a way that is inclusive, that's optimistic, that's aspirational, that's focusing on solutions. And so what's going on right now, and I think you see this because we're in primaries, both sides, the Democratic Party's in a big primary and the Republican Party's in a big primary, speaking to each other's voters, and there's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of anger out there. Why? 45 million people in poverty. Wages are stagnant. National security's a mess. People are really anxious. And so this anxiety has got to be channeled and dealt with solutions instead of just amplified and accelerated and exacerbated. And right now in the primaries, it's being accelerated, exacerbated. Gas is being thrown on the fire. In my own view, look, there's a guy who got me basically into doing this. A guy named Jack Kemp. He was my mentor, a guy I worked for. He just had a different view of these things that I just was so infectious, his enthusiasm, that I was talked and brought into politics that way, which is speak to our common humanity, fight for ideas, fight for principles, debate the merits of your proposal, don't insult the motives and the integrity of the other person. And to your point, I didn't always get it right myself. I mean, we all have to work to improve ourselves on these things, but I think leaders need to lead with aspirational politics that are inclusive, focus on principles, apply them to the problems of the day, and give people solutions, and then let voters decide. And that, to me, is the kind of clarifying election we ought to have, and that is not exactly where we are right now. But I'm hoping in a few months we can get there.
I think we have time. We have time for one more question from the audience. If you could come forward, thanks.
Hi, Speaker Ryan.
Hey.
My name's Nick Simon. I'm a junior in the college, and I'm majoring in government and history, and I'm from New Orleans.
You're from where?
New Orleans,
Oh, okay.
Louisiana. Yeah. So my question for you is, when I first started getting interested in politics, I was a freshman in high school. And the big issue that everyone was talking about, and you were one of the leading voices on this, was the national debt. And the national debt is now $19 trillion. And I've had to explain to a bunch of liberal friends, even at Georgetown, the repercussions of that. Why is the national debt no longer like a buzzword in the election? And I'm frankly surprised you didn't even mention it here. So what do we need to do to let people know how big of a deal that is going to be for our generation?
Pretty sure I mentioned it. That's what I was talking about when I meant entitlements. That's what I was talking about, the second plank in our plan. Patient-centered healthcare is also entitlement reform, and it's basically the healthcare entitlements that are the drivers of our debt. So please know that is a high priority. My own view on this, as the person who wrote most of our budgets that we've passed or offered, this is your generation's big fight. Prior generations, boomers, I'm an X generation, have racked up a debt that if we don't get this under control pretty soon, you're going to have a lower quality of life. That's what I mean when I talk about the debt. And the point I would make is the sooner we act on this, the better off everybody is. The sooner we tackle the drivers of our debt, which are these entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare. Social Security doesn't have as big of the number driver as the other ones, but those are what we call mandatory spending, entitlement programs. That's the autopilot part of our government spending, which is about, it's getting to be 2/3. It's about 60-40 right now. In a handful of years, it becomes 100% of our government spending. All revenue will go to that. And the problem we have is there's no way the government will be able to sustain these programs. And if that then happens and the debt gets too big and too out of control and we have a debt crisis, then we're going to have to cut these programs in real time for real people who have already retired and organize their lives around them. Think of the social chaos that occurs when that happens, like it happened in Europe and Greece. Our point is, and it's part of our agenda, let's get on this now. And by the way, if we do this now, then we can solve it on our terms as a country in such a way that it doesn't affect people in or near retirement. My mom's 80. She's been living on Medicare and Social Security for a while now. Why should we pull the rug out from under her after she worked, paid her dues, paid her taxes, prepared her retirement for this? Let's keep that intact. But for those of us, for your generation, the millennial generation, our generation, the X generation, I think,
yep.
Right? Okay, thank you, sorry. Let's fix these problems prospectively so that we have these benefits for us when we retire, but we're gonna have to change these programs, make them more competitive, make them more efficient, make them more 21st century, more open, more competitive, so that they're there for us when we retire, and we get this debt under control so we can cash flow and keep the promise to the people who are already retired. We can do it on our terms as a country if we go soon. We blow another presidency, and believe me, I tried for a long time to get a budget deal with this president. Just wouldn't do it. I just don't think progressives are interested in the kind of budget solutions you have to have in order to fix this problem. And I'm not saying this is just Republican, Democrat. Look, Erskine Bowles and Alice Rivlin, two great friends of mine, Democrats, agree with the kinds of solutions I'm talking about. Alice Rivlin and I had an amendment to the Simpson-Bowles that would have fixed this healthcare problem. So I believe that there's a coalition of Republicans and what I would call moderate slash conservative Democrats that can fix this debt problem on our terms as a country. It makes these programs work better for the future, keeps the promise to people in or near retirement, and we got to do it soon, really soon. Otherwise, the debt is going to get out of control, and we're going to be doing surgery per the bond markets, and it's going to rip up the social safety net and be chaotic. And so that's the point I keep making. You're right, though. It hasn't been talked about enough. It's been glossed over. I mean, it's because we have a $500 billion deficit, we think we're in like high times. Just so you know, with 10,000 people retiring every day, this day and for the next 10 years at that rate, in a couple of years, we go back to $1 trillion deficits for as far as the eye can see, and they never come back down. It's because of the retirement of America. And when you have a 90% retirement rate of Americans, but only a 19% rate of young people going into the workforce to pay for those programs, therein lies your problem. So we got to get ahead of this. We are offering solutions. We've passed for 5 years a plan that fixes this out of the House. It's part of our agenda. We're going to take this agenda to the country, and we're going to ask the country for permission. That's what our agenda is all about. Here is our solution to these problems. Here's why we're proposing it this way. Here's the principle we're using to do it. And if you choose this by supporting us, then we're asking for the mandate to do it in 2017. That's what I think is necessary to have a clarifying mandate-based election to give us the political wherewithal in order to fix these problems in 2017 so we can get on this problem and fix it while it's still within our own control. That's why we're doing what we're doing, and I appreciate the question.
We could keep doing this all day, and there's so many more people who have questions and want to engage in the dialogue, but unfortunately our time is up. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Part of this dialogue.
Thanks, Georgetown. Thanks.
And I also want to thank my co-moderator, S.E., who has been such a big booster of the Institute, and we're glad to have you here, and thanks for helping bring this guy on campus.
My pleasure.
Most importantly, I want to thank all of you. The Speaker and I don't agree on a lot of policy prescriptions, but we do agree that it's going to be up to you guys, and we need you engaged. So thank you all for being here. Thank you. Hey, all fun. That was awesome.